Yo, what's up, internet? It's RJ with Roads to Liberty. I'm out here in nature. Check it out. Nature. And I want to do a video today that would seem a little uncharacteristic for me. What I want to talk about is a libertarian case or a voluntarist case for restrictions on immigration or closed borders. And it's a tricky subject, I'll grant everyone that on the onset, and I'm not even taking the position that America should necessarily build the Trump wall, as it were. But I do think there's some intricacies to the topic of immigration that within the confines of a statist society aren't quite so simple to solve, right? So here's where I'm coming from. Take the example of your home. Your home is on fire, right? And the only fire protection company in your area is taxpayer funded. So it's provided by the city or the town. Would you, as a libertarian, not call 911, not call the fire department because you recognize that that is against your libertarian principles to, oh, someone's coming, to use state funds? Of course not. Nor would you avoid using roads, right? I drove to this nature spot here. I'm on my way back to PA from New Jersey, using state roads. I'm a voluntarist, but until there's a voluntarist highway system that I can subscribe to, I'm going to travel on the course of state roads. Call me a hypocrite, whatever. I like the word pragmatist. So you wouldn't let your house burn down to the ground just because the state has a monopoly on fire protection. So how does that connect with borders? Well, we're in the confines of a statist society, and what the state has done through force is they have made it such that for you to live here, you have to be of the same criteria of people that everyone else is in this regard, in terms of your civil rights, or your state granted freedoms, but positive rights. So what I'm getting at is, because everybody in America who makes under a certain amount of money is sort of quote unquote entitled to housing and food stamps and free healthcare and that sort of thing, America is an area in the world that has a disproportionately large demand on the immigration side. People want to come here because there's free things being handed out. So if you're a productive member of this society, essentially at the point of a gun, being forced to pay for this subsidy on poverty, this subsidy on free housing that is given out to anybody and everybody who manages to be here, this is where I think you could make a protectionist case as a libertarian, but only under the confines of this statist society, where restrictions on immigration can be seen as a measure of self-defense. So, you know, if something happens to someone in my family that I love, where they're, you know, in need of medical care, or they're in need of police protection or something, there's no alternative for me. I will use the statist, state-funded services as an American, because that's the only choice. That's what society has thrust upon me. So because people are rushing into this country, or let's just say, given that that were the case, I'm not going to bring data to bear here for you to decide whether you think that's the case or not, but assuming that is the case, that there's a influx of people, or even a subsidy on having children for people who are poor, looking to have more kids than they would otherwise if they had to pay all the bills. Does it make the situation different? I say it does. Generally speaking, I think the libertarian stance is to promote free movement of people, because a restriction on one's right to travel is inherently sort of tyrannical or oppressive. Now, if we were in a free society and a bunch of us had homesteaded, 100-acre plot of land that was unused, or we purchased it from the previous owners, and we decided to create a neighborhood, we could have whatever rules collectively agreed upon for that neighborhood as we wanted. I think the most clean way to do that would be to have a contract that we signed upon investing into the neighborhood. I get this parcel, you get that parcel, here's the guidelines, here's the rules, here's the means by which we could alter these rules in the future, whether it's democracy, whether it's something that's set in stone, or something that has to be unanimously decided upon by all shareholders, or whatever the case may be. A free society can descend back into quasi-statism or full-on statism if there's enough voluntary support to sort of tip the scales that way. But if we had, let's just go back to our example, we had a little homestead, a couple of us, our family, whatever, and we decided we didn't want anyone visiting us except for our family and our co-workers and our friends. Well, if somebody wants to come over, or someone wants to come onto our property to try to sell something door to door, or some person from another foreign land decides to come to our land and pitch a tent, we have the right to kick them out. So it's not as if in a free society or under voluntarism, or from a libertarian standpoint, that, well, we just let people go wherever they want to go. Of course not. Property rights supposes and says and requires that the owner of a land has the ability to restrict access to that land to other people. So the reason why we can't apply this in America with a wall or with restrictions on immigration is because nobody owns America. It's publicly owned. And so because it's a democracy, quote unquote, the people, quote unquote, have the right to vote for the sort of policy they want to have put in place in that regard. But it's messy because obviously not everyone agrees, and the choice affects everyone. So the point of this video is to just sort of point out that if you're here in America working and paying taxes, and thereby you and your children are footing the bill for immigrants or welfare or public housing, and you recognize that it's not an indifferent proposition as to how many people come here and then the relative cost of public services. If 1 million people or 10 million people a year immigrate into the United States and they don't get jobs, and they live in public housing, and they live on public subsistence for food and medical attention, the cost to the taxpayer, the cost upon the rest of society, is going to go up. So if we lived in that neighborhood, that voluntarist neighborhood that I suggested to you, and we all agreed we didn't want people pitching their tents on our land, because when we let people pitch their tent on our land from foreign areas, they tend to leave a mess. They tend to, use kerosene to light their fires. They pour that on the ground. It starts fires. It destroys our crops. It destroys our well water, our groundwater. People are not respectful of things they don't own. So what we ultimately all get together and decide is that we're unanimously in favor of building a wall around our property so that it's harder, or let's say impossible, put an electric fence or whatever, for anyone not welcome to come in. That wouldn't be anti-liberty, to restrict access to land that you rightfully own, to prevent people from visiting you or trespassing on your land. So, like I said, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm not making this case and saying that I think America should build a wall and that Trump's policies are libertarian. But I'm sort of walking back my initial gut reaction to Trump's policies because of the anti-liberty nature of them. In fact, there is a individualist, civil libertarian type of understanding about immigration that I hopefully put forth in this video that wasn't, in my opinion, too big a part of the narrative, which says that when things are being handed out for free and Group A has to pay for those things, Group A should have, I think, in fairness, some ability to restrict the amount of people in Group B who have access to those free things but are not required to pay. So that's really the gist of it, guys. When free things are being handed out, the people paying for those free things, I think it would be fair to say that they have a say in how many people get the free things and how much those things are going to cost and that sort of thing. Love to hear your thoughts, guys, and I'll be doing another video next where I sort of actually make a libertarian case for trade tariffs, taking another one of Trump's policies and using a similar line of reasoning, but explaining how you could have a quasi-libertarian case for restrictions on free trade. And I'll save that for next time. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.